thank you everybody for coming on such short notice. But as you all know, we had a horrible loss of a great New Yorker, someone that led this city with distinction. He was someone that attempted to bring everybody together, and he very often said that New York City was a gorgeous mosaic, right? And that it was made up of people from all over the world, races, ethnicities, religions, sexual orientation. He felt that New York City's strength was its diversity. And as someone that brought the city together during a very difficult time, many people don't know that he was really the pioneer in getting funding for initiatives that put police officers on the ground in communities. And so when crime came down, very few people acknowledged that it was his doing that really was the impetus for that change. But he was a great mayor. He started the Beacon program, yes, which was the first after-school programs in the schools throughout the city for young people. He opened the doors wide open and gave a hero's welcome to Nelson Mandela right here in the city of New York. And as I said today to the news, on that day when Nelson Mandela visited New York City, all neighborhoods of the city of New York celebrated freedom. And New York that day was the center of the universe, and David Dinkins was our mayor.
Yes, yes.
And so we know what transpired after he left. The city was divided. The city was polluted with racism and division. And we will always remember David Dinkins as a gentleman, as someone that believed in bringing people together, in consensus building, and someone that represented all of us in New York City with distinction. And I know that he lived on Riverside Drive on 155th Street. So as a young man, I saw that dashing looking gentleman always with his double-breasted suit,
yes,
and handkerchief, a silk handkerchief and tie. He was always a gentleman. And we will always remember him as a great mayor, one of the greatest mayors the city of New York has seen. So we're proud of his legacy, and I thought it was fitting that we come here at the Adam Clayton Powell State Office building, and at the statue of the late great Adam Clayton Powell Jr. to lay some flowers in his memory, and to acknowledge that he will be for all of us forever our mayor, the Honorable David N. Dinkins. And with that, I want to introduce our councilwoman who knew him very well, our assemblywoman. I saw a twinkle in her eye there. Assemblywoman. And she knew him well. And I want to hear some words from her. And of course the other elected officials.
Queen of Harlem, I'm Nice Dickens.
Thank you so much, Congressman, and thank you for bringing us together
Yes.
in recognition of our mayor, the mayor of this great city of New York. You mentioned, Congressman, about seeing our mayor on Riverside Drive. Well, he had moved up by then. Moving on up.
He was moving up.
He first raised his family at the Riverton at 135th Street, between 5th and Madison. So his nurturing when he first got married to his bride of 67 years, was raising his children in Central Harlem. And they had the embrace of the Harlem community because he had married into a phenomenal family. You know, we talk about this man in a very positive way now that he's gone. But the city did not give him his due flowers to smell while he was here. He was not given the credit for the revitalization of 42nd Street that the world enjoys today. That all came from David Dinkins and his investment. He's not given the credit for the investment of 125th Street with the Apollo Theater. He's not given that. But Percy Sutton and David Dinkins and Basil Patterson and Charles Rangle, they stuck together, united as one, because in unity there is strength in order for the revitalization of 125th Street. Now, we talk about all the different things today that he did, but the grassroots organizations that he put in place serves us today to help to sustain and show a different pathway to success for our future, our youth. Mayor Dinkins, you stood tall for not only this community, but this city. You were charismatic, you were certainly intelligent, you had foresight and forethought. You expressed love with a twinkle in your eye every time you said, my bride of 67 years. And when you talk about your baby boy, your son, whose age I won't mention. But Mayor Dinkins, as late as we are in acknowledging you today, we're all standing, whether we're talking about something city council level with Bill Perkins, or whether we're talking about from the assembly with Al Taylor and myself, or whether we're talking about our congressman at the federal level with Congressman Adriano Espaillat, or whether we're talking about the granddaughter of Percy Sutton, and we're talking about Keisha Sutton James, or whether we're talking about candidates such as Alvin Bragg, or whether we're talking about our district leaders, and we cannot stop from not mentioning that we have before us the executive director for NAN, National Action Network, and that's Derek Perkinson. We stand here united today to say thank you as we bid adieu to this phenomenal man that God blessed us to walk amongst us here in this community, that we were blessed to have him as our mayor. And although the media and the city did not give him the due praises that he should have gotten, that he was due because his successors took credit for the foundation that he laid. Today, we're giving that acknowledgement, albeit it's late. This is to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to Mayor Dinkins and the Dinkins family for having allowed us to share in him, to take up most of his time and most of his energy, I might add. So, Congressman, thank you. Thank you so much for bringing us together once again to say thank you to this phenomenal man.
Thank you. I know. And you know that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we probably won't be able to say goodbye to him appropriately for now. I'm sure that in the future we will have something. But, you know, this is our way of saying we're here. Let's now hear from our council member, Bill Perkins.
Yes.
Bill Perkins.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to say a few brief, very brief acknowledgments of the occasion. And I want to commend all of those who participated in bringing us together in memory of someone who has passed and paid his dues towards heaven. And we look forward to communicating spiritually with him so that he will never be gone and he will always be around to provide us with some sort of spiritual leadership. We thank him so much for his physical leadership and his voice. Sometimes long-winded, always on point, nevertheless. So we're happy that we have an opportunity to memorialize him, to remember where we were with him and where we were when we weren't with him and the hell we caught otherwise. Thank you.
All right. Ouch.
I didn't feel
Some of you might remember.
Yeah. Let's hear now from our Assembly member, Al Taylor.
Wow. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
And listen, we're here to pay tribute to a man that was great. I first met Mayor David Dinkins when he was the borough president. And as the congressman said, it was up in the hill because he was living up on Riverside. So he and Denny would meet when they came out of each other's garage.
Oh, yeah.
And as a young intern, Denny would come out of his garage and Dave would come out of his. And they would get together for 15, 20 minutes unscripted. No, when I was a young intern. So I just jotted down a couple of things. I just want to share this about this man. It says, a giant amongst men have fallen asleep. A giant of gentleness that passed these quarters in streets of Harlem. A giant of boldness that believed that these mean streets of Harlem, Bushwick, Brownsville, Crown Heights, South Bronx, Jamaica, Queens must have a seat at the table of policy and decision making. A giant with the audacity to believe everyone's voice should and must be heard and has remained silent too long in the bowels of City Hall. A giant that welcome to this very plaza we stand on, the king from Africa, none other than Nelson Mandela, for the whole world to witness. A giant that was the best public servant for all the people of New York State and America. A giant that never forgot where he came from. A giant that sought the wise counsel of his special friends, like Percy Sutton, former borough president, like Basil Patterson, Esquire, first black deputy mayor, and like the Lion of Lennox, none other than the former chair of Ways and Means, congressional member Charles B. Rangel. So I am happy to contribute a couple of words. He was awesome, and he always was hospitable, welcoming, and inviting, and he was a giant that others should emulate. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's not forget that he also directed the Arthur Ashe Tennis Stadium, which brings more revenue during the U.S. Open than baseball and other sports put together. So don't forget his legacy across the city of New York. Let's now hear from District Leader William Allen.
Thank you so much. I first met the mayor as a very young boy. He was in a tuxedo. He was super dapper. And I asked City Councilman Fred Samuel, who is this walking into our club? And he said, that is the debonair David Dinkins. I said, well, who is he? He said, well, he's a district leader. And he was just appointed as the clerk of the city of New York. And that was my first moment. And he was very charming. He took the time to speak to me. And I saw how he just lit up the whole room that particular day. And at that time, it was Jimmy Banks and Fred Samuel and Lois Banks and Earl Murray and Dr. Adams. And it was a whole village of us, and it was a special time in Harlem. But David always found the time to make all these stops to all the political clubs in our community. Back in those days, we had about maybe 7 clubs. We had 7 political clubs right on ours, and every Monday and Thursday, all those clubs were packed. I mean, it was the thing to do, and that's how we were able to share information. And so when we talk about the Democratic Party in particular, a lot of us, that was our family. That's how we got developing. And David Dinkins came out of that process. As you know, he also became the president of the Board of Elections. Me and Bill Perkins became, along with Al, we became African-American chief clerks at the Board of Elections, thanks to David Dinkins that led the way. And so our party in this city and this country is better because of the leadership that he provided. And if you know anything about his legacy of becoming mayor, he was able to just bring people together. And why his term as mayor, some might call it the Black Camelot period, but those 3 to 4 year time was really incredible. It started so many people's careers. People that became ambassadors to like South Africa. People became members of Congress now. People that became members of the Assembly, City Council. Bill Perkins was just back in those early days, this guy out of college. And now he's going on to do great things. And so, if it wasn't for David Dinkins, what'd you say, Bill? Before school. We all started that way. Lighting a torch, along with Percy Sutton, along with Charlie Ringo, along with Basil Patton. Here's these 4 black men that said if we work together and we stick together and we keep our fighting inside, we can achieve great things for this culture and this community. So I just want to thank the congressman for being a torch today of bringing us together for our late mayor.
Thank you. And our candidate for attorney, District Attorney Al Bragg.
Thank you so much, Congressmember, for bringing us together. You know, as a son of Harlem, I can't put into words what it means to have grown up with a black mayor from Harlem, someone to look up to, and we've heard all some of his peers, but someone who came up behind him and had his model to look up to. And just one short personal story, because it wasn't just what he did, it was how he did it. I remember a dear friend's grandfather passed away, and Mayor Dinkins was close with the family. He called the family and said, "Is it okay if I attend?" He had the self-awareness and the humility to not want to detract in that moment, but to support. That's who he was. A gentleman, self-aware, humble, one of the best leaders we've ever had. And as a child of Harlem, to have him to look up to was so inspirational. So just humbled to be here with you today. Thank you so much, Congressmember, and to my Assembly member, and to others here, Assembly member, District Leader, Council member. Thank you so much. Truly standing on the shoulders of giants.
Thank you all for your kind words in remembrance of the great David N. Dinkins. And with that, we're going to lay these flowers right here at the steps of the great statue of Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Everybody? Anybody else?
Oh, I would like one. Harlem member. This is Harlem and all of Harlem. In Harlem, and we are made and no pain in full. Yes, and wearing his crown.
Right. Thank you, everybody.
En nuestra comunidad recordar a Dios.
Un pionero nombró al juez Rolando Acosta como comisionado de derechos humanos. También fue el propulsor de los programas Beacon School que abrieron los centros para los jóvenes después de las horas escolares en todas las escuelas de la ciudad de Nueva York. Fue un líder de avanzada quien comenzó realmente la lucha contra el crimen y consiguió los fondos para implementar los programas de seguridad pública en la ciudad de Nueva York.